Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session of Business Bitesize. I'm Will Abbott, and I'm the Business Advisory Partner at Brownell & Payne. This week, I thought it might be useful just to talk a little bit about pricing strategy. So I know that this is something that a lot of businesses struggle with in terms of how to get their product priced correctly. And this is an approach that we encourage people to go through to try and come up with a more rational, logical pricing for their products. So we think there's effectively 5 ways to price what you do. The first one, I guess the obvious one, is cost plus. So you work out what your costs of your product are, you add on your profit margin, and there's your price. One of the challenges I think with this one is actually particularly when you get into things like overhead allocation and apportionment, actually working out the real cost of producing a product is actually harder than it seems. So the direct cost might be fairly easy to do, but if you get into something like activity-based costing, then that's a bit harder, but actually really needs to be done that way to get an accurate cost base. Number 2, we often look at what competitors are charging. So that's another way that businesses often try to price. They look at what the competitors are charging and they try to match that. Well, I think it's interesting if we just talked about cost plus and how difficult that is if your competitors are trying to use a cost plus model and getting it wrong, and there's nothing to say that their price is right. And of course, they may well be able to produce a product cheaper than you can. So it's not necessarily true to say that the competitor's price is the one that you have to match, because you may not be able to. The third one is the market price. This is what the market will bear. So what is the customer prepared to pay? And I guess that's the important one, I would suggest. It gives us a guide as to what we do. Actually, the customer might be prepared to pay more than we're thinking of charging, or they might not be prepared to pay as much. So we need to understand why that is and modify our cost base and our products to match. Fourth one we may come across is regulation. So certainly in pharmaceuticals and those kind of areas, the government might set the pricing, or you may have a professional body or something that sets the pricing. So that's one to be aware of. And then the fifth one is what we call business plan pricing. So this is perhaps typical for a new startup, as an example, where their pricing in the short term to generate growth is not necessarily what they're going to be charging long term. So I think, again, with the business plan, we're kind of asking 2 questions. Are you focusing on profit at this point, or are you focusing on growth? Often clients are trying to be more profitable and grow at the same time, which is, again, a bit more challenging. So I think it can be useful to focus on one or the other. And the cycle is, let's improve our profitability, then we'll grow, then we'll pause and improve profitability again. So business plan is, again, important. And sometimes, again, with competitors, if they've got a business plan because they're trying to grow market share, it might mean that their pricing at that point isn't a very good guide for us. So cost plus, we've talked about that and the difficulties there. I think competitor pricing, this is where it can be quite useful to do a competitor analysis. So what we want to try and do is understand what our competitor's products look like, and whether we're more or less expensive than them. So we're going to have a bit of a problem if our competitors on the face of it have a better product and they're charging less than we are. So that's going to be a challenge, but we need to understand why that is. The market price, I think a good one here is something like a product benefit analysis. So again, perhaps looking at it from the client side, customer side, what are the benefits of our product versus competitors? And again, how does our price compare to theirs? So if our price is more expensive, why is that? What is the particular benefit that our product's bringing that justifies that additional cost? Once we understand that, that's something we can start to promote in order to keep the price up. So there's a bit of work to be done with this. I think the final thing I would say is that we often tend to think about the cost plus approach. So we might say, let's say our product costs £200 to make, and we want to make £40 worth of profit. So we end up with a price of £240. And what we tend to focus on is whether we can achieve that price. And of course, if we can't achieve that price, if we have to drop the price, what's impacted is the profit. So if we drop our price to 220, our cost base is the same as 200 and our profit just drops to £20. What I try to encourage clients to do is to kind of turn the thing around. So let's understand what the market price is. So let's say the market will pay £225, and actually we want our profit to be £40. Therefore, our cost base has to be 185. So what we're then focusing on is how do we get our cost per unit down to 185, because our profit should be sacrosanct. That's the profit we need to make. That's the profit we're going to make. So that figure shouldn't change. The figures that should change is the costs. If that's the price that we have to achieve, then it just brings the focus onto our cost base rather than just moving the price around. The costs don't change, and the thing that is affected is the profit, which I see all too often. So that is one approach to pricing. I think again it's a good exercise to go through, because it just opens up the conversation, asks some quite challenging questions of you in the team about what we're doing. And I think it certainly can bring the focus on to what are the benefits of our product, how can we justify a higher price, and perhaps more importantly, what can we be doing, constantly focusing on how we reduce our unit costs, how can we bring our costs down. So thank you for joining me, and see you next time.